What is generative AI? Well, it's systems designed to learn from data to essentially generate new data. Because language, images, audio, video, it's data, right? We can break it down to data. And generative AI takes that data and learns how to generate new data. Anyone know why this picture's up here? This is a fake image of a very prominent leader in the world. It was fake, but it wasn't so fake that you didn't know. But kind of the positive is it wasn't so real that you couldn't tell. So it's an interesting case study, and we can do some very interesting things, but we can also detect these things right now. In fact, most of the anti-deep learning technology to detect these things are quite accurate, 99% plus accurate. I work in the entertainment space. BENlabs works with brands, creators, entertainment, advertising. If you think about it, entertainment has a plethora of data. YouTube has billions of videos uploaded all the time. You know, Mr. Beast's latest video, I think, is at over 80 million views in a couple days. There's just so much content and entertainment that you can do some really interesting things. So what are people doing with this in this industry? This one is a little less known than the Pope one, but it's very interesting. So Coca-Cola, a huge brand with huge budgets, used generative AI to show this image of a hand moving around paintings. It was AI in collaboration with designers and human experts, but they used AI to create a very compelling visual story of Coke moving through art. This is very interesting. Coke, a huge brand, gets on generative AI to help them do something. And this was in the entertainment and advertising space, very well received, a very good ad. AI Fashion Week. If anyone's here in fashion, they literally did a thing called the AI Fashion Week, where the goal was to work with AI technologies such as DALL-E 2 and generative image technology to generate fashion and work with experts in the area to bring new pieces to life in collaboration with data technologies. We estimate that $150 to $275 billion in profits could increase thanks to these types of tools in fashion. It just lets them move much faster, be more creative, and collaborate with data-driven systems, which is really hard in the creative space. It's really hard to have a collaborator that's not a human when you're trying to think about the latest fashion trends. The Masters Golf Tournament. This one I actually find quite interesting. The Masters does not strike me as a top tech company, but they did something very cool. So they've got thousands or even hundreds of thousands of videos of people golfing, and they used AI to understand that scene, used a large language model to describe it, and then they auto-generated narration, and they even fine-tuned that model in order to use the right golf language. So now they can upload these videos to YouTube that are little clips of golf that they don't have to pay someone to go and narrate and explain what's going on. So in the influencer marketing space, this one's very interesting for a lot of reasons. So it started out as an influencer named Karen who was like, I can use AI, large language models, to represent myself to my audience. So she charged, pretty simple, $1 a minute to basically interact with her bot. It would talk to you, you could talk to it. It's basically like a large language model trained on yourself. And this enabled her to scale her interaction in a much more personal way with her audience. Seems, great, right? She estimated she would make $5 million a month from this technology with the growth she was seeing. People, though, took it to a bad place, and so they had to shut it down. But that doesn't mean we can't fix some of these things. So there are people out there, there are creators, there are brands, there are organizations like the Masters Golf Tournament that are looking at this technology and they're looking to push those boundaries and figure out how we can use it to better engage with our audiences. Oh, and the last one, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. TubeBuddy is a tool that we have, and what we've done with this tool is you can bring in your YouTube context. We do it automatically for you. TubeBuddy will basically take in that content, suggest content ideas for you, title ideas, descriptions, automatically using your own data to help you be a better creator. So there's just tons of examples of how to generate cool things, but what are some of the perils on the path ahead? We've talked a lot about some of these, but hallucinations is the word we're using right now for things that generative AI does on accident that are not real. So if you ask ChatGPT a question about what's the fastest land animal and it tells you a whale, it's not true, unfortunately. But it doesn't know it's not true. So there's a difference between the second of misinformation and hallucinations. Hallucinations is the model trying its best to answer your questions, but giving you misinformation on accident. One thing we tried to use it for early on was like, maybe you're a brand and you want to find the best creators to work with. You go ask ChatGPT, who are the best influencers out there? It's like, here's the 10 best people for you. Gives you their handles on Instagram. You go plug them in, they don't exist. So hallucinations are really hard to deal with because you spend a lot of time trying to backtrack that information. Deepfakes and misinformation we've heard a lot about today. Do you think this image is real? No. We would call this a deepfake. Any of us could be deepfaked fairly easily now. If someone, like was mentioned earlier today, records your voice or your image or a movie of you, it doesn't actually take that much individual data to tweak these algorithms to represent you. So this is obviously very dangerous, very painful if it's used inappropriately. But as we saw in the previous talk, you can use a deepfake of you, an artificial version of you, to do good things, to represent yourself in ways that can scale you and do other things. Misinformation, this is one that maybe scares me the most because text is so easy to generate. We know websites like Reddit and other social media platforms are having more bots putting out information on their sites than ever before. And one thing that I find interesting about both of these things is depending on when you were born, you're much better at detecting them. Is anyone's parents or grandparents very good at detecting misinformation? If your parents are like mine, my mom's like, I saw this thing on Facebook, I'm a little worried. And about 3 seconds into her description, I'm like, that's not real. And she's like, how do you know? I'm like, it's just not real. But if you talk to a college student, they trust nothing. Everything is fake. They've kind of grown up in this age of like, there's a lot of bad information out there, I don't trust anything. Another peril is it's non-differentiated. So if all of us today use ChatGPT to say, give me an introduction speech, we'd all be probably saying the same speech when we got up here. And so you end up in this world of like average. Everything's average. And so one of the perils, I think, is that it's removing creativity in some ways because it's pushing everyone to tools that are easy to use. And they're so easy to use, we just hit enter. And so that's something I think to be aware of. And then last but certainly not least is IP infringement. This data to train these models didn't come from nowhere. This data was generated by all of us. You maybe don't know it, but it's likely that your footprint out there on the internet got sucked into one of these models and was used to generate something. You're not getting anything for that. You were never asked about it. Maybe it wasn't yours to own, but there is definitely data that was not meant to be used that was pushed into these models. And look, a lot of innovation is kind of like move and ask questions later. I get that. But there are now things we have to ask questions about. What is going to happen when people stop creating data? If everyone just keeps using large language models, who's making new things? I don't know. So I think these are 4 things we really need to watch out for. But that being said, if people know Mark Andreessen, he recently had a really good post about why AI is going to save the world. And he has a good quote that I think is really relevant for us. He said, the era of artificial intelligence is here, and boy, are people freaking out. Fortunately, I'm here to bring the good news. AI will not destroy the world. In fact, it may save it. Which I tend to believe is true. I think technology is always scary. It always is hard to understand. It's always got real power for good and for evil. But I think that if we use it correctly, and many of us here will probably be at the forefront of that, we can do some really good things. So what are some of the potentials? Number 1, it's an ability to focus on your expertise. If you think about a YouTuber, they are the script writer, the actor, the content producer, the editor, the marketer, the brand negotiator. They have all of these jobs that they were never trained on, right? They went out and wanted to be a YouTuber or an Instagrammer and they don't know what they're doing. AI can come in and say, hey, here's like the basics of SEO. Here's how you should think about editing. Here's some things that can really help you. And so I think that's really cool because as all of us can use less of our time on things that aren't our unique capabilities, we can spend more of our time on things that do make us unique. Next is increased scale and automation. You can do a lot more when things are helping you at a click of a button. That being said, as we talked about, some of that's not always right. It could hallucinate, it could give you bad information, so you have to be careful. But I've already even seen in my own life, like, I don't use Google for restaurant recommendations anymore. I use ChatGPT because it will give me a pretty quick description of the restaurant right there. And like I could go dig through that and everything, but ChatGPT is like, boom, here it is. Here's a description. Here's why it's good. I will say sometimes the restaurants they're closed. Like it doesn't know that they've been closed. And so I'm like, ChatGPT got me again. But it can scale you. Next is AI collaboration. Don't act like this is AI replacing you. Act like it's AI scaling you, or your team, or your organization, or even your family maybe. Like if you have to negotiate a family treaty and you go to ChatGPT, it might help you. There's just a lot it can do to be a collaborative experience right now. And then last but not least, one thing I think is super interesting, there's limitless growth potential theoretically with artificial intelligence. We don't know how good this can get. There's a lot of belief that it can get really good and a lot of fear about that, and maybe it can. But as we keep making it better, it's kind of like leveling up your automated collaborator. You know, as OpenAI does its research and makes things better, as more people come in and make it better, as we tune these things and tweak these things, it has a theoretical limitless possibility to help us. And you could also say that it has a limitless possibility to hurt us, but I think that's now within our control to try to figure out. But what should you do about all this? How can you stay ahead? Talent and expertise. There's a lot of people that have knowledge about how to use these tools that is magnitudes ahead of the average. Get those people, learn from them, understand them, become one of them. Talent is going to be really important on anything cutting edge to move it forward faster. So if you want to be there, learn about it, use it, understand it, join companies that are trying to push the edge. You're going to fail. That's going to happen, but you can push and grow and really become something special. Culture of innovation. Don't be afraid to do something new. We have records of companies that rose to the top and fell to the bottom because they were afraid to step out of their comfort zones. You can be smart about that. You shouldn't bet everything on something new. But if you won't take that step, someone else is going to take it. And then just monitor and adapt. Like anything, use it, monitor, understand, and adapt what you're doing. If you can just do these things, bring in great talent, really strive to grow your own talent if you're a company to do these things, have a culture of innovation, and just keep monitoring what you're doing, learning from your failures and adapting, you will be able to move forward with this technology. That doesn't mean it won't be painful. It doesn't mean you won't make missteps and have challenges, but you will make progress. And then the last thing I want to kind of end on is it all starts with the data. You have unique data that separates you from everything else. Everyone else that's relying on the generalized large language models, generative, image models, video, audio, they're using the same kind of data set running through the model. But you can fine-tune or adapt these models to your space, to your data. We just saw that from Pattern, how they were doing that. This is where you're going to be differentiating. And if you don't have good data practices right now, you need them. The world is moving to data-centric, AI-centric decision-making and collaboration. And if your data is a mess, you're never going to get there and you're never going to win. So bring in like one of these tools, put your data in it. A simple way to do that is just prompt it. You don't even have to fine-tune it. Just say, hey, I'm a creator and my last 4 video titles were this. What should my next video title be? It's going to be much stronger than just saying, hey, AI, give me a good video title. So if you're one takeaway from this, I think it's the data. And the cool thing is that hasn't changed. It's always been the data with AI and technology. So if you haven't really invested in that space, invest now. It will pay dividends now, in the future, in any new AI technology that comes out. And then just keep learning, keep innovating. You're here, so that probably means you want to be on the cutting edge. Don't be afraid of it. It's going to do some really special things. It's also going to do some really stupid things, but that's okay. Like, we'll get there together. Generative AI, I think it's here to stay. It's already making a huge difference in the entertainment space. I'm sure all of you have seen it already make a difference in things you've interacted with. But let's help make it good. Let's help make it something we're proud of that's really helping us move the world and our companies forward, and not something that, we're disappointed with. So, thank you.